And I do think I'm recording now. Hey, Omar, you're at Chicago Cycling Network. And today we have just somebody who, man, when you learn about this person, you'd be like so amazed. Like, how did I get this person to be talking to? Because this person's like in his own right. I think he's a legend, and you'll see why. And we're not gonna do it too much because he's gonna tell us about himself. And I'm happy that we're able to highlight Chicago cycling, not just about Chicago, but beyond Chicago, that's going to end up becoming Chicago. And you guys will see as we progress the conversation how we go from beyond Chicago into Chicago. And this is going to be a treat today, guys. So stay tuned. And as we conversate, so please introduce yourself, let us know who you are, and let's go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. I'm sorry, Nelson. I'm so appreciative of you having me on the show. We've been coming to Chicago for 20 years now. I'm the vice president of physical health and wellness with Wounded Warrior Project. Name is James Herrera, but like I said, we've been coming to Chicago for one of our premier Wounded Warrior Project programs called Soldier Ride for the last 20 years. And we just keep coming back because we get such an amazing welcome and sense of gratitude from the community there for our post 9/11 veterans. I've been around the performance exercise science space for a lot of years. I spent most of my adult life and my professional career doing that. Prior to working for Wounded Warrior Project, I was working with USA Cycling and working with elite athletes and preparing them for the Olympic Games. And so I got lucky enough to be a member of one of those teams. Went to the London Olympic Games in 2012, but just was working on high performance. And just by a very, very fortunate meeting, I was teaching at a executive leadership summit in Colorado Springs at a place called the Center for Creative Leadership. And a gentleman that used to have the job that I'm in now was an attendee of that course. And so after I finished my lecture on the value of physical fitness and performance and good nutrition on executives, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, I have this job that I think you'd be great for." And initially, I didn't really consider it because we were about halfway into the Rio Olympics, which would have been in 2016. We were halfway into that development cycle. And I thought, no, I think I'm pretty good. But he gave me his card and he said, just go home, look at the website, look things over. And so I did a little bit of research on Wounded Warrior Project. I come from a family of veterans myself. My father, two of my uncles, my grandfather all served in different wartime conflicts. I did one enlistment in the Army. And so just, coming from a family of veterans, I thought this organization is doing something so impressive and impactful. It would be, such a gift to be able to bring the knowledge that I have from the performance world over to Wounded Warrior Project and potentially help to drive teams that are impacting the physical and mental health of our post 9/11 veterans.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So for those of us who don't know what Unirunner project is, could you explain, like, let's know, because I think a lot of people don't even know about what this project is about. Could you give a little bit more detail about what's it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Wounded Warrior Project was founded in 2003. We had veterans or service members, active duty service members that were coming back from the conflicts in Iraq. And it was early on in the conflict there, and they were coming back to the military hospitals after these pretty significant injuries. There was a lot of improvised explosive device injuries early on in that conflict, and you got all these people that are coming home, coming back to the hospitals, and I don't think we were quite prepared. So as individuals that were visiting the hospitals and recognizing that these service members were, in hospital gowns, didn't have any amenities, they didn't have any clothes, they didn't have, cell phones, they didn't have anything. And so a group of individuals recognized this and started bringing basic essentials to the hospital: toiletries, playing cards, socks, gym shorts, things that you could use and that you really need to make you feel more like a person, just better equipped, for a pretty difficult time in your life. And so, in any case, the ball got rolling in that endeavor and started to build momentum, and consequently an organization was assembled to take care of the multitude of needs of those post 9/11 veterans. So here today we stand with little over 15 programs and services that range from mental health support, physical health and wellness, which is the programs that I get to work with, financial well-being, social connection. We have an arm of the organization that works on our legislative priorities. So, things that are really going to impact the needs of all veterans of all eras. We've got that group that sits in Washington, D.C. and does a lot of amazing work. So we're really fortunate, to have this multitude of programs that is focusing on so many areas, that is kind of creating a holistic building of the quality of life of our U.S. post 9/11 veterans.
Wow, that's pretty amazing and impressive. So, I mean, how many people are we talking about you guys have been helping? I mean, for 23 years now, I mean, how many have you guys reached out to so far? I mean, this is something very, very.
Yeah, I mean it's a crazy number. We've got close to 250,000 registered alumni, members. We call them alumni, but those that are part of Wounded Warrior Project, and that includes family support members, so individuals that are part of that family network of the veteran. But I would, when you talk about interacting with these individuals and you start to tally things up, we've got millions of interactions or engagements with these veterans, and these are programs that could be a day long, could be an hour long, could be things that are going to impact them ideally for a lifetime, bettering their physical health, bettering their mental health. Some of our programs are lighter touch, social connection, going out to a park with your family, where we bring food and games and things like that for the family network, doing Lego nights, going to concerts, going to ball games. So a little lighter touch, more social interaction. And then you have things that are a little bit deeper, things that involve mental health, sometimes inpatient stays in our Warrior Care Network, which is a suite of academic medical centers that really does a little bit deeper intervention for those in need. We've got a complex case coordination group that really deals with some tough stuff. We have a group called the Independence Program that deals with our most severely wounded. So providing care and support and things for them, for a lifetime. And so one of the things that I think is a beauty of Wounded Warrior Project is that our veterans don't pay a penny for any of the programs or services.
I was about to ask about that. And if you want to like donate, how do you reach out to donate? There's a website you could go to and get some stuff.
Yeah, so the easiest place to go is www.woundedwarriorproject.org. That's the best place to go for information, for donation. There's a lot of different ways to potentially get involved. We've got events like our Carry Forward 5K that people can participate in and donate. But the website's got everything, one-stop shop. You can find all the information there.
Also, do you guys ever get like, get involved with like some of the big marathons, like a marathon, Chicago, those you guys?
So we're now starting to, I'd say, get more into the endurance space, where our community fundraising team is really going to connect with bigger events like that to raise awareness for Wounded Warrior Project. We had a team that was in Denver this last weekend at the Colfax Marathon, which is a really big, long-standing marathon in the Denver area. But we're now talking about things like the Army 10 miler, which is, several thousand people, the Marine Corps Marathon, which is huge. And we've also, our CEO is a big runner, him and his wife, very, very much into running. So they're fans of us getting more connected to some of the bigger endurance type events.
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to see you guys having your name being flashed in Tour de France in a couple of months too. So that would be pretty awesome.
That would be cool, man. Absolutely.
Also, since I think the Olympics going to be here, or is it the World Cup going to be here in a couple of years? So we should also get some.
Yeah, I think we got both of them coming up. LA, I know, is in 2028, I believe.
Yeah, so definitely get some good PR for that, because what you guys are doing is like really, really amazing. So with the current political climate, is that affecting you guys now in any way, or?
Not really, man. I think that the most important thing is to focus on those post 9/11 veterans in front of us. Like we don't get involved in how the political climate sways one way or the other. We're really, really just focused on those service members and those needs that they have. It's been over 20 years, since those wars started, and we know that if we look at past era veterans, you think of veterans that like came home from Vietnam, they are still needing services today. So we know that 20, 30, 40, 50 years post conflict, post retirement from the military, our veterans are going to be needing those services. And that's why it's so important for us to stay engaged. So, despite whatever's going on in the political world, the veterans at the forefront of our focus, and just really being mindful of what they need and just how those needs are evolving.
Oh, nice. So if I remember well, you talk about post 9/11. So I think Pete Davidson's father was a 11 stuffs. You guys should get him involved. Because was father being involved in this. So that would be pretty interesting to see if you something that'd be interesting to help you guys to get some.
No doubt, man. If you're able to make that connection, we're happy to talk to him.
That's a challenge. That's a challenge. Let's see how far I can go. So yeah, so you talk about in going to the Olympics. I mean, what was that like to be a part of that?
It was pretty incredible, man. I gotta say, it's surreal. I was asked to be part of the team early on when we heard that BMX was going to be BMX cycling, right? These are the small bikes that race around a track. Most people think they're just for kids. There's a lot of kids that participate in them, nationwide, worldwide, and that's how I got my start in cycling. It was BMX racing, and so it's sort of the foundation of
I thought you were gonna say BMX. When you said BMX,
BMX, yeah, not BMX, yeah. So BMX cycling, it's the foundation of cycling for a lot of people, right? They're small kids' bikes. You jump them, how you make ramps out of like plywood and bricks and things like that when you're a kid. But then if you're fortunate enough to be around a track like I was, you get to start racing. Sort of develop that bug for cycling. But I got asked to be on this team that was going to help develop what that BMX program and that curriculum was going to be like for USA Cycling. It had just knew that it was going to be in the 2008 games in Beijing. And so pretty early on, I got to have a voice in some of those discussions and assembling the team. Started traveling with the team to World Cup events that were part of the selection process to make the Olympic team. Our group had an amazing showing at the very first Olympics that BMX was part of in Beijing. We got a silver and a bronze medal for the males, and then a bronze
pretty
medal for
impressive.
the females. So out of 6 medals, the U.S. took 3 of them. So it was great. So now going into London, we're the favorite, and we're taking a pretty stacked team. It was a very emotional experience. One of my favorite athletes. I mean, I worked with her for a long time, and we have a great friendship to this day. She's a coach now. Actually, she's now in a role like what I was in with USA Cycling coaching. But she got hurt the day before we were getting ready to leave for the Olympics in London. So she lacerated her liver on just a kind of fun session around the track. And so I was already going there with a lot of emotion because she was going to be left behind. But we get to the event, surreal experience. You're in the Olympic Village surrounded by all these heroes in the sporting world from around the world. You've got Usain Bolt walking down the street with his
Yeah, yeah.
people taking other athletes are taking selfies with him, and
Do you mean
um,
take a selfie?
I did not because there was so many people around him, and I didn't want to go, run up and mob all these superstars and be like, "Hey, can I get a selfie?" Even though I did with a few, but it's just a really surreal
You're a
experience.
superstar too. So I mean, come on.
I don't know, man. It was a really great time. We had a good experience being there. Unfortunately, we didn't have the success on the racetrack that we did in Beijing, and so that sort of left a bitter taste, but also a fire and a hunger to come back and just get back to work. And so the experience itself, we had some highs, we definitely had some lows because we didn't get the medals that we wanted to. come back and rebuild. And then 2 years into that process, I wind up meeting this individual from Wounded Warrior Project, and my life took a completely different turn. But I wouldn't have changed anything that I did before I came here, for the world. It was being part of high performance sports, and some of the friendships that I've been able to develop. I'm literally going to see one of my former athletes who medaled in Beijing. He's graduating from the Fire Academy in LA in 2 weeks, and so I'm going for his graduation. I still have great connections with all my old athletes, so it was a really really great time, man. But I'm super fortunate to have made that pivot in my career and wound up here at Wounded Warrior Project, because I never thought anything would be more impactful than showing up on the Olympic stage and having prepared athletes, until I got here and started meeting a lot of the veterans that we get to serve, and seeing some of those impacts and those stories firsthand.
Wow, that sounds like a metaphysical experience being in a car. So you mentioned you ride BMX. So how long have you been riding now? Are you still like more like a BMX guy, or are you more kind of a roadie? What do you do?
So I sort of transitioned from BMX. I was playing a lot of other sports. I played football and I wrestled, and I boxed and I did all these other things. And so I sort of gravitated away from BMX as I got to be, more high school age, because I was playing team sports. And and then I got a little bit older, and I met this individual that got me into road cycling. And he was like, "Hey, you used to bike, this might be a cool thing for you." So introduced me to road cycling. I, got my first road bike and started putting on the miles. I was out living in West Texas in El Paso, very, very hot. So rides start early in the morning, but just was around a great group of people. And the camaraderie that I got from road cycling was just so cool. It was social and it was competitive. And it was just fun. I looked forward to going out there and hammering with these guys and trying to keep up and learning how to get on a break, and just all the fun we had. But even more so than that, it was just the sense of community that I had. Going and having coffee and breakfast with the guys after training and things like that. It developed such a huge passion for me for cycling. That was really what instituted as a kind of a part of my life. For the last, God, it's been, I think I started off road biking. It would have been like maybe early 90s. So it's been a while.
Wow, wow. In early 90s, I wasn't even high schoolers yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
So
an
you
old
mean
guy, man. But road BMX was a foundation. Road cycling kind of became the thing. And then around the same time, or maybe shortly after, I got into mountain biking. And mountain biking was just a brand new thing that they were doing out in, it was like California was kind of where it took off. You had like the Gary Fishers and those people that really started that movement. And so I really gravitated to the mountain biking side. I like the dirt. It reminded me more of BMX. And so the technical stuff, the rocks and things like that. And I really just fell in love with it. And so I became more of a mountain biker. I moved out to Colorado, and where I really started off my coaching career in a bigger way. But the trails out here in Colorado Springs, it was just like a whole other world of mountain biking. And so that, I'd say I'm more of a mountain biker. I still road bike. I still love it. I love the social nature of cycling in general. And then I still sort of have this attachment and passion for BMX. I still kind of watch, because the athletes that I used to coach are now coaches, many of them. And so I still kind of have just a
your
relationship.
kids grow up, like watching your
Yep.
kids grow
Yep.
up?
Exactly, man.
So when you played football, what position did you play?
So I was a running back and a linebacker. I'm a small guy. Like I'm not, I went to a small school. So I was a bit of a standout at a very small school. So nothing major. I wasn't going to go play in the pros or anything like that. Definitely cycling was much more of my passion.
Gotcha. Oh, what do you have now?
Say that again.
What do you now?
How many bikes?
Yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed to say. I'd have to stop and count or go look in my garage. There's probably, I'm gonna guess 15 hanging in there.
So
Combination of BMX, and dirt jumpers and mountain bikes and road bikes and yeah, all the things.
So my thing is, whenever they ask me how many bikes I have, my answer is always yes.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I should have said. I could have just left it at that, and that would have been a whole lot easier.
Just a yes. Yeah, so the big thing now in for biking now is like everybody's like gravitating towards like gravel biking now, right? That's
Right,
a new thing now. That's a new fad. And I
right.
was in last year, I was in Fraser, and I brought my road bike, and it's like every time I turn off a road, it's just like hard packed gravel. I'm like, I didn't, because I really thought I'm gonna see some nice road to bike on.
Right.
Every turn a mile down the road, it becomes hard packed gravel. So I missed out in Fraser, but that was a beautiful experience to go to
Yeah.
Colorado and experience that.
I mean, I've witnessed a lot of transitions in, kind of just cycling popularity, right? Like it's when I got into it, road biking was kind of the only thing. Mountain biking had just started to come into play, and then all of a sudden, and I actually worked at a couple of bike shops when I was younger, when I was in college, and so all of a sudden, mountain bikes come around and they start to outsell road bikes. I moved to Colorado, and then cyclocross became popular. And then so
Right,
all of a
right.
sudden you started seeing more people doing cyclocross. And then it was, now the gravel craze has taken over. There's been downhill and four cross and slalom and all these other, the more gravity oriented mountain bikes, things you see, like you see on Red Bull Rampage, things like that. But yeah, it's interesting to watch the fads and the transitions in cycling. Gravel is really popular here in Colorado. We got a lot of backcountry dirt roads, but my friends and I used to ride our road bikes on the same dirt hard packed trails that people are now riding gravel bikes, and we didn't think anything of it. It was just like, okay, this is a bumpy ride.
Yeah,
Um,
so the big thing now, we transition from like 19 millimeters, like 23 to 25. Now almost everybody know, right? Like 28 millimeters. Now it's like 30. They think about going up like 40 for bikes now. What happened because it's all thing about like pressure and pressure, the big tire and all these different things.
right.
Save some watts and all. It's a crazy show right now. A road
Yeah.
bike has come a long way and it's a lot of fun.
Oh
So you
yeah.
mentioned that you're in El Paso for quite some
Yeah.
time. What were you doing in El Paso?
Well, I was born and raised there, El Paso, Texas, man. So it's as far west in Texas as you can get. It's on the New Mexico border and on the Mexico border. So it's a when you live in a border town, it's a very different culture. I didn't know anything different, right? That's where I grew up. So, but it is a very different cultural experience because you have that influence of people coming back and forth and across the border. The community was probably 80 to 85% Hispanic, but that was my normal. Everybody spoke Spanish. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm not. The more I've not lived there, and the more my older relatives have passed on, the less I speak it. So not as highly fluent as I used to be, but yeah, I can get by if I go to a Spanish speaking country. Um,
Got
but it
you.
was, it's desert, high desert climate. The trails that where I started mountain biking were pretty brutal. Desert rock, rattlesnakes, cactus. Everybody that learned how to mountain bike there has got a cactus story. So it's definitely an interesting place to learn how to ride. But then I came out to Colorado, and all of a sudden it was just like I was in the most, utopian paradise place to mountain bike you could possibly imagine, pine trees and like beautiful trails and, climbs for hours and hours and hours. I mean, it's just a mecca for outdoor activity. Cycling is, I think part of the fabric of many of the fit Colorado towns like Boulder and Denver, Colorado Springs. So there's a lot of people. If you're in Boulder at any given day of the week, you would probably think there's a bike race going on, or a running event. Like it's just normal. Everybody there is so active, and so I really loved kind of my transplant to Colorado because it's such an active place, and you see bikes everywhere. You see people that are aging, 60, 70, 80 years old. I was just having a great conversation with a friend of mine this morning about how when I moved here, it sort of transformed my vision of what good, healthy aging looks like. When I was in El Paso, I thought when you hit 60, like you were knocking at death's door, like you just sat on the couch and watched old movies and you didn't do anything else. And here, I would go to bike races and running, like the Leadville 100. I'd see 70, 80-year-old people out, doing the mountain bike race at the Leadville 100, or the ultra running events that I used to do. I'd see these 70, 80-year-old plus individuals getting out there, getting after it, skiing, snowboarding. And it's like, man, this is what aging well looks like.
So
And
you're
I
an
just,
ultra runner also.
what's that?
You're also an ultra runner. That's pretty impressive.
I was for a long time. I'd say I am like middle middle distance ultra now. Like I did it for a good bit. It was really fun. I mean, I love being out in nature, and I'm sorry, say that you broke up. You broke
Barkley.
up.
Barkley.
Barkley. I have not done the Barkley. I've done a lot of stuff in Colorado. I have not done Barkley. I've heard about it and I've watched videos and it looks absolutely miserable. Um, I just enjoy being outside. I enjoy being outside and I enjoy moving. And I think that's one of the things that I really want to infuse into the culture of our post 9/11 veterans is just this movement, right? Like there's so much great information out there right now about the impacts of being in the outdoors, being out in nature and moving on the brain, on the body, on the mental health. As a neuroscientist, you're very, very familiar. I don't need to tell you all the impacts that it has on mental and brain health.
When we get that dopamine and serotonin running, I mean, you can't beat that biking high, runners high, hanging out at the coffee shop with your boys, watch to each other. You just can't be this the social aspect of that, and know it impacts and in our health, both
Yep.
physically and mentally. So the other thing that just popped in my mind, you talk about from El Paso. So one of my favorite songs as a kid, because of my dad, I used to listen to Martha Robin a lot.
Okay.
He's a country western singer, and his
Yeah.
song that says El Paso, the next maiden, and I'm like, it's playing my. I am young, but I grew up in Jamaica around other older folks, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I know all these older lyrics. So yeah, March Robin had a song about that. So as we try to learn more and everything. So tell us about the ride coming up in Chicago and why we should what exactly it's about.
Yeah, so like I said, we've done our soldier ride in Chicago for the last 20 years, and like we just couldn't be more grateful for the support that we've had from several groups out there in Chicago. The law enforcement community, Cook County sheriffs, Rosemont Police and Fire, the Brookfield Zoo. We've had all these just great Chicago support mechanisms, and it wants us to keep us coming back more and more. We've had the opportunity to ride into the Brookfield Zoo where they've got thousands of the zoo patrons and the staff, and they're lining the streets, waving American flags, welcoming our veterans. We got to ride down Lakeshore Drive, and we've got police and fire groups blocking the streets for us, so we're riding through the stoplights and the stop signs, and it's just such a cool city. It's one of the iconic cities in the country, and it's just hard to. We have events all over the country. We've got some big ones, right? We go to New York, we go to DC, we go to Miami and Key West. We're in Nashville, we're in San Diego, we're in Colorado Springs. But like, man, when we go back to Chicago, it's just like this kind of welcome home vibe. So it's a 2-day ride. We'll be riding. It's coming up in June, the second week of June. I know that we are going to start from Rosemont Firehouse number 1 on one of our days. And we're actually ending the ride at one of the parks out there at Bandit Stadium. I believe it's the professional female softball stadium out there. And we're going to have a softball game between our veterans and the local first responders there with Rosemont Police and Fire, which is always like one of the coolest things, like the competitiveness that comes up, and the law enforcement and the first responder community and the military community just seem to get each other. They both got this service mindset and the spirit, and there's just like a brotherhood, sisterhood between the groups, and so there's just so much laughter and connection and communication going on. Like I said, coming back to Chicago is just always one of my favorites, and I have the ability to pick and choose which events I go to help support my teams. And every single time Chicago comes up, I'm like, sign me up, man. I want to be there.
So when you get to the town, so I think the event is between June 12th to June 14th.
Correct.
So And then June 13th is actually my birthday. So
Oh wow.
that'll be a
Hey
treat.
man, if you are free and you want to come out and ride with
No,
us
no,
on
I
Day,
will be there. I will
love
be
to
there.
have you out there.
I will be there. We're gonna meet in person, and I'll be there. So before we, because we're coming to an end now, so before we finish,
Sure.
it's like how many riders you typically have for these rides, and talk about, like, like if these are wounded warriors, do they have like regular bikes, or the bike modified in any way? Like touch on that a little bit so people can know exactly what this is
Yeah,
about.
so we typically have about 40 veterans coming out. We recruit some regionally, so they're possibly from the Chicago area, surrounding areas, and then we bring some from a little bit further away. So injury types are everything from completely able-bodied to possibly needing adaptive bike equipment. So someone in a wheelchair who may need a hand cycle. We've got recumbent bikes that are leg pedal, but you're sitting back. We've got a couple of e-assists. We've got tandem bikes in case we have a vision impaired warrior. So we've got all makes and models of adaptive bicycles, and Soldier Ride is an adaptive cycling program. We've got a team of about 6 to 7 Soldier Ride Wounded Warrior Project teammates who will be there that are all certified mechanics, coaches, very savvy with bikes to help fit our warriors onto the bikes, making sure they're going to have the most comfortable ride. We give them cycling clothing so that they've got the right bike shorts, the jerseys, the whole bit. We kit them out, make them look super super good. Got the Wounded Warrior Project logos all over them. And then we teach them about proper nutrition and hydration, and how to have the most effective, fun, healthy, comfortable ride that they can. Like I said, we've got what's that?
What distance are we talking about for these rides?
So both rides are about 20 miles in nature. So if you haven't ridden a bike, and these are not trained cyclists, so 20 miles to a conditioned cyclist, it's like, that's an easy day, right? That might be a light ride. But for someone who hasn't ridden a bike since they were 9 or 10 years old, for someone who is housebound that is struggling potentially with their mental health, for someone who's got an injury that doesn't know, here's 20 miles, and their immediate reaction is, can I do this? I don't know. And so there's a lot of trepidation in coming out and participating in something of this magnitude. So it's a hurdle, it's a challenge for a lot of our veterans. And the best thing about it is we've got a staff out there that is 100% capable, suited, and motivated to help them. We've got, their brothers and sisters in arms are there, and those that are potentially more capable are going to be able to motivate and encourage and help them along. So being together, that connection is really the most important thing about our Soldier Ride. I mean, yes, it's physical. They're going to be outside. They're going to be riding by us, beautiful scenery of Chicago. Um, they're going to have the wind on their face for the first time in maybe a long time, but it's that connection between one another and the support that they'll feel and the love that they get from the Chicago community that you see them on day one when they get there and they're a little bit reserved and they don't want to talk, and then by the final day it's like kids leaving summer camp, like you have to pry them away from each other and go like, no, you got to go get back on the plane and go home. They're just so happy about the experience they just got to have. And what we're hoping is that that's a catalyst for motivation for going forward. We introduced them to the bike, and then our team is there to help them afterwards to, if they want to keep cycling, we help them with resources. We connect them to the VA, the Veterans Administration. If they qualify for adaptive equipment, the VA can support that. We really want to help and motivate them to keep up with their cycling and their physical journey because they just recognize how impactful that was for them.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So we learned a lot about the Wounded Warrior Project. We learned about you and Chicago. Let's show love when they come here in June 12th to the 14th. We're going to be there to support you guys and just keep on what you're doing. And just, as we say, there's mad respect. And as we close, I'm going to say, we can talk some more, but as I close, we'll say, hey, Chicago, this is what Chicago Cycling is all about. We have people like this in the network, and let's keep the miles and smiles going until we meet again. One love. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Love it. Thank you, Nelson.
All right.